might wonder, well, why would someone be afraid of having success? Is that, well, with success comes higher expectations. With success comes more responsibility. Hey there, welcome to an episode of Pursuit. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can tell this is not the normal background. If you're listening on the podcast, good chances you can hear that it's not the same quality of audio you're used to. I am in New York City recording today. Quick trip, 26 hours in my favorite city to visit, but the city I would not want to live in, to record a podcast with my good friend Tyrone Ross at NASDAQ headquarters, which is pretty cool. As a financial advisor, dealing with investments, I've been to the New York Stock Exchange before, and now I can say I've been to the NASDAQ exchange. I didn't get the same tour that I got at the stock exchange, but still, nonetheless, I got to record on the second floor of the NASDAQ headquarters, which looks out to Times Square. Pretty cool. And the conversation that we had was awesome. Tyrone, being the good friend that he is, set me up to have a conversation for financial advisors on topics that tie into the pursuit mindset and pursuit concept, and why financial advisors should be helping clients figure out what they really want out of life and constructing financial plans to those lives, not necessarily the lives that our clients are currently living or have been told they're supposed to live. So it was really cool to spread this message and try to get more financial advisors to think bigger and think outside of the normal subject matters of retirement and college and the usual American dream type of goals that we have been planning for so many years, and really helping clients figure out in between those goals, what do they really want out of life. So it was a lot of fun. I love visiting New York City, but it was a short trip. And on the way out, I was reading from The Adventure of I, my favorite book right now to be reading right now, revisiting some of the things that I was working on or highlighting to think about for content within the pursuit. And this is kind of going to be more of an in-between episode. I'm shifting the focus of the Pursuit podcast to be more of the interview. Hopefully you had a chance to hear Austin Keene's awesome story. If not, go back and listen to that. That dropped this week on Monday. Phenomenal story. If you don't know, Austin is a world champion skimboarder, an action sports enthusiast, and just really an awesome guy with a great heart looking to do big things, all by following his passion. So go listen to that episode and actually go watch it on YouTube, because the editing team did a phenomenal job with bringing in some outside video and doing some cool things to make the video next level, trying to take the show up to the next level. I want this to be a top-rated podcast, and I need to treat it as if it's a top-rated podcast today, not wait to get there. So production is stepping up, and that video is awesome. So go listen to that episode and check that out. So this will be an in-between episode. I've got another episode with Box the Artist, a local artist in Indianapolis that'll be coming soon. And then shortly after that, an episode with a gentleman by the name of Ryan Russell, which will be maybe one of the most important conversations I've had as a podcast, and it'll be great. But back to today's episode, I wanted to tease those out there. And I wanted to talk about this passage I read this morning, and it talks about kind of our mental state, and it's going through this part of the book, The Law of Attraction. And we've talked about that before, and you've probably read about it otherwise, but there was a really good quote I liked. It talks about mental magnetics. And it says, your mental world can be likened to a mental magnet that attracts to you, to your outer world experiences matching your mental frequency, which itself is determined by your thoughts. And the more concentrated a particular thought is, the greater its attractive power. So basically what that's saying is your mindset, what your mental thoughts are, attracts physically to you. So we've talked about the energy you put out is what it attracts. And it goes on to say, once again, if you're not directing your mind, you cannot say you are creating your life in any real way. And I may have shared that quote on a podcast before. I've done so much content I can't remember. But I think these are really, really important, because a couple of things that have kind of been eye-opening for me over the last week come back to mental and mindset. I'd like to think that I have a strong mindset. I'm very optimistic. I have high aspirations for the things that I do and believe I'm going to get there and have a strong belief. But sometimes I've caught myself saying that I want something or saying that I am somebody, but not fully believing it. And that's only part of the equation. So yes, I can say it, but that's not fully believing it, which does not get to the mental magnetics of putting it out there and attracting it to me. And one of those things has been just kind of saying that I want this podcast to be a top podcast. I want this podcast audience to grow so I can impact and reach more people. And where I have worked against myself is I've said that and I've done things to try to be there, but I also have downplayed it in my mind that I don't want to strive to grow the numbers. I want them to organically grow on their own. And what I'm realizing is that I have to grow the numbers. I have a message that people need to hear. And in order to grow it and get guests who will continue to further my message and spread my reach, I've got to have the views, and I've got to have the reviews, and I got to have the likes and all those things out there. So I had half the mindset that I needed. And for whatever reason, I was able to flip a switch this week and kind of commit to this is a top 10 Apple podcast and treat it as if it is that way now and watch and wait for the real world to catch up with where I am mentally, with who I am as a podcast host and what this podcast is to be. And that wouldn't happen if it wasn't for having the mindset. So, I want to go back and revisit all of that and just remind you that your mind is a very powerful tool on your pursuit, that knowing where you want to go, having a plan for where you want to go is part of the equation, but you really have to believe in yourself and believe in where you're going to kind of complete that picture. And then the next step is you've got to go out and do the work. So I wanted to share that. And I also wanted to bring up that one of the things that, and I think this is part of my self-sabotage almost, or self-limitation that it was, is fear plays into this. And fear kind of works against our mindset to get there. And there's tons of fears out there. There's fear of failure. There's fear of what other people might say. There's fear of being wrong. And interestingly enough, there's fear of success. And you might wonder, well, why would someone be afraid of having success? Is that, well, with success comes higher expectations. With success comes more responsibility. With success sometimes might come more to lose in the long run, or just not knowing how to handle it. And success is relative. So I'm not saying that it has to be something, tons of money or tons of viewers or whatever it might be, but hitting a level of success brings new things to your life and new things to the plan. And that could be scary because you may not know if you're going to be able to handle them, or you may not believe that you deserve those successes, and it all works against you. And for me, since the pursuit episodes like this are kind of my almost diary as we build this thing out, for me, the fear that I was working against was I was afraid that if my focus for the content and the focus for pursuit was to grow the audience and get more viewers and more listeners and all of those things, all those vanity metrics, was that it would become more about the ego and less about the message and the goal. And I think that if I want to grow and I have that goal for the wrong reasons, then the universe will kind of work against me. Pride can be humbled in a great way, and I don't want it to be about pride. So my fear that I had to overcome was that it's okay to strive to have a bigger audience if the goal is to impact more lives. If the goal was to have a larger audience, to be able to talk about how many downloads I have and viewers and those types of things, then I think that's where it becomes more about pride and more about me and less about you and future listeners. And deep down, it really is about everybody else. It's not about me. If I could get the guests I want to get, if I could have the reach that I want to have with low numbers, I'd be perfectly fine doing that. But I had a podcast episode with my friend Colton that'll be coming out on his show in a few weeks. And I was just talking about this and just finally accepting that it's okay to want to go big. It's okay to believe that it should be big, that as long as it's rooted in good and the desire to help others, then that's not a bad thing. And this is a conversation that I had with Austin Keene when he talked about his definition of kind of getting to the level he wants to be is to make a ton of money. And on the surface level, it sounds greedy to want to make a lot of money, but the reason he wants to make a lot of money, as you heard, hopefully, was that he wants to retire his mom. He wants to invest in people and pour into people and start companies that can help other people. The reason for money wasn't solely so he could have a bigger house or whatever. It was to help others. And that's a good reason to make money. So for that reason, go make all the money you can, because the goal is to impact other people. All of this comes back to mindset. I'm going to end with a quote. I've said it a million times, and I give all the credit to Derek Grant. I don't know if he remembers saying this, if it was intentional, but he has a quote that ties into kind of the mindset part of things, of what we put out there is what we attract. The mindset part of limiting ourselves through fear or thinking too small is that if your net worth is what you want to carry, you can swap out net worth with anything else, but your net worth will never exceed your self-worth. And we can open up net worth to include happiness and other things, but you will never grow to be more than what you believe you're worth. So your self-worth is the key. So if you have a goal of a dollar amount or a business size or whatever it might be, happiness level, you will never exceed what you believe about yourself. And that all goes back to your mindset. So check your mindset, find ways to know when it's going a little south, pull yourself back, but it's very, very powerful. And don't limit yourself. Don't downplay your skills, your talents, your ability to be successful because you're afraid of success or you're afraid of failure. We've talked about before, there's no such thing as failure in my eyes. Every quote unquote failure is a learning opportunity. Whether you learn something for the next adventure, you learn something about yourself. The only real failure would be to not reach where you want to go and take nothing away from it. So don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to succeed. You deserve to be able to succeed and keep on going forward. And this is going to be a very important thing as you go on your pursuit, because the pursuit is never a straight line. It's up and down, much like the stock market. And in those downturns, you got to be confident in yourself and believe in yourself. And remember that what you put out is a magnet and it brings to you the same type of energy. So with that, I'm going to let you get going. But before I let you go, shameless plugs. I mentioned my goal is to grow this podcast audience so that I can have more reach and continue to grow my guest base. Without likes, without reviews, and without shares, that's not possible. So I will never be, for lack of a better term, thirsty about getting the reviews, but I am going to remind you and ask you more and more that if you're enjoying the show, leave a review, positive or negative. I was told that it doesn't matter what the reviews are, they just need reviews to show that there's an audience. So leave a review, positive obviously would be much appreciated, but let me know where I can improve. Again, we're going to have fewer of these solo episodes. I think my strength as a podcast host is interviewing, and truthfully, I enjoy it more. But from time to time, I'm going to come across something that I want to share, and I'm going to hop on, and I'll reserve those for a Friday in between the guests. So be sure to tune in, subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Be sure to head over to the YouTube channel. Some great videos there again with Austin Keene. A great short that I recently did with my barber. Shout out to Mr. Greg about fear. We mentioned fear today. In his words, the acronym that he loves is fear is false evidence appearing real. Go check that out. It's about a minute and a half. It was a little creative venture that I did. I thought it turned out pretty good and I liked, but his wisdom in there was really great. So go check that out as well. But subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe to the podcast, leave reviews. Would be much appreciated. And we'll see you all in the next episode. So as always, thank you for joining me on my pursuit. It's an honor to be a part of yours, and let's keep pursuing.